Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third meeting of the ADA Transition Plan for Public Right-of-Way uh, uh, Advisory Council. We are seeking your input because the City of Salem, in conjunction with the state of Oregon, is updating its plan to address the needs of residents with disabilities in accordance with the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. This effort will identify some of the barriers and recommend some solutions for certain ADA facilities within the city's right of way. Specifically, we're talking about curb ramps and audible pedestrian signals, and trying to develop a plan to address those many needs throughout our community for those two types of infrastructure. In previous meetings, we talked about a survey that we have put into the field concerning a few questions about some of these barriers and priorities from some of our residents. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen and talk about some of those survey results. So give me 1 second. By the way, I should probably mention my name is Trevor Smith. I am Public Information Officer for the City of Salem. I forgot to mention that off the beginning. And here we go. So hopefully you are all seeing a slide that says report for 2022 ADA transition plan. So we had 53 responses to our survey, and most of the people completed it. And in the first question was, please rank where maintenance or construction of ADA infrastructure in the city of Salem should be prioritized. There were 8 options here. The majority of respondents focused on hospital and medical offices. You can see by this rank distribution how some of those played out, but the majority of people ranked hospitals and medical offices as being their top priority for ADA infrastructure. Schools were second, neighborhood streets were third, downtown locations were fourth, parks and recreation spaces were fifth, commercial centers were sixth, government buildings seventh, and major roads as the last rank. You can see the distribution from, highest rank versus lowest rank, and that is how it was scored. The next question was, what is a bigger obstacle? 45% mentioned outdated or damaged ADA infrastructure, and 55% are missing ADA infrastructure. So the infrastructure that's just not there. So a majority of people reference that missing ADA infrastructure as a bigger obstacle. Third question, where have you noticed the greatest need for audible pedestrian signals? 52%, the largest section, says downtown as the greatest need for audible ped signals, and then 34% referenced Northeast Salem. South Salem got a smaller chunk at 14%. Where have you experienced the most challenges concerning curb ramps? The largest slice of the pie is 51% in Northeast Salem. The next 23% in downtown. The next 17% in South Salem. And then finally 9% in West Salem. And that is the end of the majority of questions. Stop sharing my screen. Next on our agenda is to discuss the draft plan review. So I'm going to bring in Anthony Gamayo to talk about how the draft plan is coming together and how the survey influenced the plan.
Thank you, Trevor. I'm Anthony Gamayo. I'm a senior transportation planner with the City of Salem Public Works. And we are working on updating our plan and in the hopes of having a full plan to good to go by the end of this calendar year or early 2023. And we're really focusing on 7 key objectives in line with best practices and with what ODOT has requested of us. I'm going to go through those objectives now and how we plan to meet those in our plan and going forward. Some of them are pretty cut and dry, but some of them are a little bit more involved. The first is identifying an official responsible for implementation of the plan. We've done that. That's Gretchen Bennett, our ADA coordinator. She's on this call. You'll be hearing from her in a little bit. The real meat of the plan is our next 3 objectives. The first is and objective number 2 overall is to develop a baseline inventory of curb ramps and audible pedestrian signals that are in the city right of way. As Trevor said, that our plan is focusing on those 2 key elements. And we have established a baseline inventory of our audible pedestrian signals. We know where they all are, how many we have. I think it's 163, with the majority of them downtown. I'm sorry, not downtown, outside of downtown. Downtown's where we aim to put them in the future. The curb ramps is a lot trickier. There are many of them that are installed through a variety of means. In our inventory that we did, which is now quite a few years old, over a decade, that inventory came back with 12,000 ramps that ADA ramps that we have around the city, or I'm sorry, curb ramps that we have around the city that are in a variety of sort of conditions. And those are ones that we have constructed. There are others that have been constructed through private development, and we are in the process of cataloging those. So as we go through this effort, we'll have a good picture of just how many ramps we have, where we have them, what areas are lacking, and so we can target those areas for improvement. Our third objective is to create a realistic schedule for upgrading the ADA elements, the curb ramps and the audible ped signals that have been identified in our inventory. And we already have tools, I'll get to those in a second, that we implement to put these improvements in. As you know, funds are very stretched thin for all kinds of capital improvements, but we do have those tools that I'll talk about in a moment that have allowed us to install, I would say, around 90 ramps a year for the last 3 years each year. So we anticipate being able to maintain that schedule. I don't want to overpromise and disappoint or underpromise, but we anticipate maintaining that schedule. Our audible pedestrian signals, we are working on determining how we're going to find funding to implement those. They'll probably, especially downtown, come in as we improve our signals and sort of package it in as part of other improvements that we do downtown as they come in. The methods that we use to improve our ADA facilities are, the 2 big ones are private development and capital improvement projects. So as you know, anytime a project comes in that touches a street, any ramps that are at that location have to be upgraded to current ADA standards. So that's our most effective tool in ensuring that anything that's built new or improved is up to standard, up to the state of the art. So that is our number one way of improving our infrastructure. But we do also let me see. Sorry, I lost my spot. So when we do like resurfacing projects and new development and redevelopment, those all call for improved ramps, upgraded ramps when there are ramps at the location. Our sidewalk department has established a criteria for identifying where repair locations are, that it was updated in 2018. And the criteria, there are 7 sort of elements of criteria. The first, and they're in priority order. Number 1 is a complaint from a person with disabilities. And we'll get to that in a moment. Gretchen's going to speak to that a little bit more in a little bit. Number 2 is any facilities altered since 1992. Number 3 is critical ADA routes that have been determined through the Title VI process. Then state and local government offices and facilities, then transportation corridors, places of public accommodation, and then finally local streets. One element that I neglected to mention, talking about developing our inventory, the city did hire a company called Cyclomedia that's doing a pretty interesting effort. They're employing LiDAR technology to drive all our streets, and sort of it's kind of similar if you've seen the vehicles that map out for like Google Maps, but they, using much more sophisticated equipment and cameras, they are mapping our infrastructure in the right of way, and including ramps and audible ped signals and sidewalks, and they will be getting us data from that effort starting in January 2023, and we really anticipate that that's going to help us quite a bit with understanding what exactly it is we have and where improvement is needed. Our 5th objective for our plan is just public outreach and putting together a public improvement plan. That's what this group, our advisory committee, is about. But we have sort of 3 strategies that we're employing that really have been heavy on public involvement. And one is the infrastructure bond that's going to be on the ballot in a couple weeks. That went out there with an enormous amount of public feedback that we're still receiving. The second is this project advisory committee. And third, we are encouraging general public participation. We have a city webpage that is sharing any progress and comments related to this plan, and we continue to invite that, and we'll continue to invite that after we've completed the plan. And thanks, Trevor. He just sent the link. And as we wrap the plan up, we'll have a further just like a public comment period, like a 30-day public comment period, where we'll do kind of a blast and let people know that it's out there, and sort of harvest that feedback, and as we finalize the draft. And our 6th objective is one that we've already met, developing an ADA policy statement. That is on our site. That's separate from the link that Trevor sent you. That's got its own dedicated page. And finally, our last objective is one that we already had that I'm going to kick it to Gretchen in just a moment, is implementation of a comprehensive complaint request and grievance process. And it's sort of timely that this is coming up, because we had an issue with that just over this past week. And if I could, I'm going to kick it over to Gretchen, our coordinator, to talk a little bit more about it, if you would. So Gretchen.
Yes. Hi, everybody. This is Gretchen. happy to talk about that. We really want our members of the community to be able to let us know when there's issues, complaints, concerns, questions, whatever it may be, and to be able to communicate those things to us in whatever way is easiest for them. And through this past few days, we were glad to become aware of a glitch with our system. There's a community member who's joined us today. Alan Scott is with us today, and Alan let us know that Alan has a complaint, and happy Alan to invite any corrections to what I'm saying that you may have, but Alan has a complaint that's gone unresolved for a long time. And I had not been able to see the substance of the complaint until just this morning when I got the information in a different way. We took a look at our webpage and we discovered some ways that we can improve the way that people are writing into these online forms in a way to make sure that that's easier and better. So we were grateful for Alan bringing this to our attention, because it's triggering a discovery at our end on how to make the site better and get us information more quickly. So I'm really grateful for that. But Alan wrote a letter that he asked to be shared with all of you. So we'll be sure to send that out. And I'm delighted now this morning to be in receipt of the substance. And so, Alan, I'll be happy to give you a call today if that's all right with you. And Alan, any corrections to what I just said, or just want to make sure real quick I communicated that correctly?
No, that was my understanding too, was that there was something at the city that was kind of blocking that data. So I appreciate that that's fixed. I would recommend that there's be something on the form that says how to get that back to the city. But now that you've fixed that, it makes it a lot easier, for us community members. So
thank you. We will also, that was a great oversight. I don't know how, like Ellen pointed out, the address isn't on the form, and that's just a mistake. So we're absolutely happy to get the address on the form as well as a phone number. You know, we want there to be no wrong door, or, you know, open up all the possible ways that people can communicate with the city. Very good. But yeah, we have a process. I do receive complaints and inquiries and questions and concerns from community members that just roll in about things related to accessibility in Salem. And so I'm always happy to receive those and try to chase down a remedy that can work for everybody. So glad that we're in this discussion.
yeah, thanks for allowing me to join your meeting. I do have another comment that I really feel I need to make, and that's you have two goals apparently of this group. I would really, I have to compliment the city on their curb ramps. They are all over the place in our neighborhood, but our neighborhood being one of the older neighborhoods, it's difficult to get to those ramps because the streets or sidewalks are broken up so badly. And I encourage all of you to take a look at the pictures, 180 photos that I took just in our neighborhood of areas that need substantial work. And they're on the salemnen.org website. I was chair and vice chair of that organization for 20 plus years. That was one of our major issues. At almost every meeting, somebody would complain. So I could go on for quite a few minutes. Take a look at my pictures. I think while LiDAR is nice, seeing those pictures, you know, in color and how bad some of them are. Like my letter says, we have a granddaughter, wheelchair-bound CP granddaughter, that we cannot push around our block without going into the street. And blocks on either side of us are exactly the same way. So enough said. Got my email address, my phone number. So I'd be glad to talk more with the group or individually.
Rick, would you mind sharing a little bit of information about sidewalks that we've discovered in the past month or so?
Sure, Trevor. So my name is Rick Barnes. I'm the assistant city engineer for the city of Salem that deals with our transportation projects and CIP, and we work closely with our street maintenance group. And one of the things that they wanted to highlight was basically, this kind of as Trevor talked, or excuse me, Anthony talked about, funding is very tight right now. And really what we have done to try and respond as much as possible is there's 2 different crews that the city maintenance group has to deal with any sort of sidewalk or ADA ramp or whatever the issues may be. One is strictly strictly focused on complaints or on requests and the like, special requests, whatever that happens to be. And I can't remember what the term was. It's their, but they basically are, they're going all over the city, replacing what they can to deal specifically with complaints. Now, it is much more challenging when there's a whole, blocks of sidewalk like Mr. Scott talked about as far as it need to be replaced. And that's where the second crew comes in, and they're the ones that are working on things in a more planned and deliberate fashion, where they can approach, whether it be a whole block face or doing work in advance of another maintenance project. When we do pavement maintenance, for example, we need to upgrade the sidewalk ramps in those areas. So that crew is specifically focused on doing the planned work. But I just wanted to let you know too that basically we have the 2 different crews. One that is really focused. So like in Mr. Scott's case, with this request, when it comes forward, it can get forwarded through Gretchen and to our streets department, and they're able to work it into their schedule to get those knocked out as soon as they can, compared with the other requests that come in, and then the others that are really more of the planned type of work. So, any questions on that by chance? Okay, thank you.
All right, Anthony, is there anything else that we need to go over with the draft plan?
I don't have anything else specifically with the draft plan. We're still finalizing it, incorporating data that we've been receiving as we've been, sort of focusing on this effort these past few months, and incorporating the feedback that we've gotten through the survey, through this committee. Our staff, we're going to work to finalize it by the end of this calendar year. We're going to be including the concerns that were raised both through the survey, concerns that were raised through letters like Alan's, which are hugely helpful. And once complete, we will be making the plan available to the public for that 30-day public review period. And we'll incorporate that feedback, submit it to ODOT for their review and consideration. And so this will sort of, we're kind of wrapping up this development stage here, and this will be the last meeting of this group. But everyone is invited to submit comments at any time, and especially to review the plan once it's been finalized and publicly presented for that public comment period, which we'll let you all know when that kicks off. If people have feedback, any discussion points, anything they want to see, we're happy to hear it now.
Krista had a comment. Hi, this is Krista here. I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, so maybe you've already discussed this, but I did have a few questions. The first question is, I'm already on the ODOT ADA work group. I've been involved with that. So I'm curious, how are you partnering with ODOT to focus on the statewide requirements? And I'm just kind of curious in what that partnership is and what it looks like.
Okay, oh yeah, go ahead.
This is Gretchen. Krista, thank you. We do work closely with ODOT to make sure that we're in compliance with all of the transportation related ADA expectations. They are in touch with us. They can provide technical assistance. They provide clarity We do communication back and forth with them about tasks that we're completing. We work with their civil rights division on subjects. So I think there's several ways in which we intersect with ODOT. I also know ODOT is responsible for some of the rights of way or the roadways that run right through the city of Salem. You know, there's property that people often think is the city's that belongs to ODOT. You might be aware of that, like the bridges to and from West Salem and East Salem are a good example of that, or even I think Commercial Street in some cases might be ODOT property. But I guess that those are my thoughts as I think about your question. Others may have things to add, or I don't know if that was responsive.
Yeah, I think that works
Okay, thank you.
as an answer. Or I've been in contact with specifically about formation of the plan. We got a lot of guidance from ODOT on what points we're required to hit and what the process should look like, right? And I do know that so they approached the city at I guess a higher level earlier this year, and we're sort of working on the nuts and bolts of putting the plan together.
Okay, great, thank you. I was just curious because it seems like there's overlap there. And I was wanting to make sure that the city was partnering and how they were partnering. So thank you. So then I have one more kind of a feedback. It's more feedback than a question. But this was brought up at an ODOT meeting. I was talking with some of the community members, deaf and blind community members. And I got a lot of different comments from them for people who are deaf and low vision. So they would not be able to hear the signal with the sidewalk, and they also would not be able to see the lights change. So what to do in that type of a situation and how wide, if it's far, like if someone with low vision, they might could see if it was not a very wide street, but they would not be able to if it was a bigger street. So I'm just curious, is there any way that you can add flashing lights for those that are able to see those lights flashing as they're walking by? And even if it's a wide street, would it be able to be a larger flashing light for them to be able to see? Is there any consideration to that?
So Krista, I'm Rick Barnes. And so my group would be the ones who would be constructing those types of projects. And it's an interesting concept as far as the flashing lights. So this is great feedback to be getting to try and help those that are low vision and might be hearing impaired. I know we have in the past our Audible pedestrian signals, the buttons themselves, they vibrate, and they have a little arrow that is on the side of them that point in the direction of the crosswalk. But I mean, that's one thing that we currently do, but I'll definitely take this feedback from you to be able to kind of help brainstorm with ODOT, especially when we're starting to look in the downtown core area. What are some areas where they're wider streets that we're crossing, and to see if there's other items that might be able to do that without doing something. The flashing lights can sometimes have other impacts with other individuals as well. So it's kind of it's definitely a challenge how we help everybody without having issues with somebody else. But thank you very much for the feedback.
This is Krista again. Thank you. And if you want any follow-up questions or discussion, I'd be happy to have that. And I am familiar with the deafblind community, and then and I can help you get in contact with them. So one more thing, for example, on 12th Street and State, the intersection there, I think that it's not a very safe because it has that push for walk. And then if you start to walk, and then there's that train, and you're supposed to stop at the train track before continuing on to 12th Street. And so I'm just curious, how do you improve that? Because I'm concerned myself, like I'm a very fast walker, but sometimes I feel like I have to walk really fast to make it all the way across from this beginning to the end, hitting the train, the part in the middle and then getting to the other side. And so I'm just wondering, is there any plans to improve that area?
The area has been improved a number of different times. We've tried different things out there. And the only other option that we have looked at is what's called 4-quadrant gates. So they're basically smaller arms that would come down that would block pedestrians from crossing, basically on just past the kind of the little barrier wall that's in between the promenade and the railroad tracks. The problem is people just tend to still walk around them, and now they're trapped in that kind of no man's land in between the railroad tracks and 12th Street. So currently there is markings that are down on the sidewalk that basically are trying to get people to wait on the far east side of the tracks, to not try and stand in that no man's land. But it's a challenge that I'm not sure that we've totally cracked the solution for yet. And we continually look. We're part of a working group that works with ODOT Rail, the rail division, and their office actually is right down the street over there by Marion Street. So we definitely hear from them whenever they notice issues that are happening out there too. So I guess I don't have a perfect solution for that, but we definitely recognize that it is a challenge, not only for everybody, how to try and get them across. The timing is supposed to be sufficient for people to be able to make it all the way across from one side to the other. But are you thinking that it just seems like the time is too short over there, or what? Is there anything else that you are noticing?
Yes, it does seem to be too short for me. I've seen people who are like, if they're moving slowly or if they have a stroller and they're trying to get by quickly, and then they have to try to get to the other side and they're not quite able to. So then they end up stopping in the middle and they can't walk because they feel like they don't have time to walk across 12th.
Right.
So my concern is if you wait right there and a train's coming, that's definitely not safe.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that means we need to add more time so people can get all the way across. It just seems that it's not a really good solution with how it's set up right now. Like, I definitely think we need to add at least a little bit more time so that it's not quite so dangerous trying to get all the way through.
I appreciate the feedback, and we'll look into that to see if there's something that's messed up with the timing or whatever. Thank you.
That's great. This is Krista. Thank you very much. I know this is our last meeting, but you can contact me at any time for any more feedback or any questions with anything.
Thank you, Krista. We will.
Alan, I see your hand up. Would you like to make a comment?
Yes, I just want to make it very clear that I do not represent the NIN board. I'm off the NIN board. I went on to some other things. But the other thing, is there anything in Salem like the Portland Disability Rights Oregon organization where other ADA issues are discussed or disability rights are discussed?
I'm happy to begin an answer to that, Alan. This is Gretchen again. We have been receiving and working to address ADA issues as part of our Human Rights Commission. Actually, Krista is currently the vice chair of that commission. We occasionally receive complaints and concerns from community members on specific things. And then probably the broadest policy change that the commission was involved in was maybe a couple years ago now, when in working with community members ended up recommending to City Council that closed captioning be required to be on in certain circumstances at places of public accommodation. And the council did support that recommendation, and we changed the city law that relates to closed captioning. So that's a couple of examples of work that the Human Rights Commission has done, and I'm the liaison to that, and I'll put some information in the chat about it.
Does anybody else have any comments or feedback? Yes, Mr. Osek.
Hi, it's Tim Rochek, and I'm connected with Garton. And thank you for the work so far and all the comments. Krista, I really appreciate your comments. I don't have anything nearly that earth-shaking, but a question that I get asked in the community that I don't have a good answer for, I wondered you might be able to help me with. Is there, I know funds are tight everywhere. Is there any sort of fund the city might have, any assistance that might be available to help small business owners make their own retail businesses in particular more accessible? Because I understand the city's role is more the public right-of-ways, but then you're also facing a situation somewhere where you can get where you're going, you've got your sidewalks all fixed and you got your curb cuts in, but then you can't get in the door. Is there anything available to help business owners that want to make their business more accessible?
This is Gretchen. Tim, thank you for that question. I don't think I have an up-to-date answer for that question. Here and there, I've seen opportunities come through particular grant and loan programs, but it's been a little while since I've investigated that question or seen anything more current that I can think of. So I don't know if others here would, but for me, it's been a little bit since I've seen something like that.
I'm not aware of anything within our Public Works Fund that would be there. That would probably be more of a general fund type of improvement. But I'm not aware of anything.
Yeah, I'm looking around online to see if there are, any good, any good programs, any private grants or anything. I'll come across a couple of sites, but I can link them in the chat. Might be a good starting point. But yeah, unfortunately, we were only able to touch what's in the right of way, right? Like that's what what's the city's. But in terms of funding opportunities for grants for private businesses to improve accessibility, I'm not sure. It looks like they're out there, but I don't have specifics.
I could maybe add that our urban development department does have strategies to try to support the private sector and to help our businesses grow and thrive. And occasionally, I think through there may be opportunities, but I don't want to speak for them. I know they have grant and loan programs, but these days I don't know the ins and outs of that, but grant and loan programs that private business can apply for.
Yeah, I guess I appreciate the thought, and you're checking into that. And it seems to be outside the purview of this particular process, so I'll defer to that. However, you do interact with other people where it might be a more appropriate conversation. So I'll just put that out there. The positive that I see, even if it were a relatively small fund that's not intended to cover anybody's full costs, it draws awareness and supports that kind of thinking. And those sorts of things tend to spread when you see the business next to you starting to do something that makes it easier for people to access their business. Then you start asking questions. And so I just would put out there, to incent that sort of behavior by the private sector would be a good thing, in my opinion. And thank you.
All right, this is Trevor again. Does anybody have any further comments or suggestions they would like to make at this time? Okay, then we can move on to our last agenda item, which is next steps for the plan, which Anthony has already gone over a little bit, but just so we have it in one conversation, let's go over that again.
Just as a reminder that we'll be wrapping the plan up by the end of this calendar year, and to be on the lookout for when we put it out for sort of a public blast, and you're looking for feedback. So this is the last meeting of this group, but we still encourage your participation and feedback for when we send that out. And that'll be sort of the last round of feedback that we're looking for before we send it to ODOT. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be in touch with you all.
Krista has a comment.
Yes, Krista.
Hi, this is Krista here. I missed, how long will it be available for a public comment when it's put out?
30 days.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all for your participation in this process. I know that this is a big issue and we're only tackling a small chunk of it. But I thank you for your time and I thank you for your opinions on this. And please reach out to us at any time. Our website is going to stay live and stay up so we can keep filtering in and receiving those comments. And you know, I imagine that this work will never be done, that we'll always be improving and always be working towards that end. So thank you all for your time and have a nice afternoon.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye, thank you. Bye.